So we're on line 2. Negroes are the people under God's curses, but also inherit /hold invite to His promises. His being the Most High, Yahweh. That's his name. But first off, let's start by giving thanks. Give all thanks to the Most High, all praise to the Most High, Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shah, Yahweh Shah. Hit the water for the Spirit for letting this next video be brought forth. So let's go ahead and get into it. So this is Rich by Heritage. As you see, we did a little update. Rich by Heritage, Israelites. Actual truths covered up from the Negro, Native, Hispanic man, woman, and child. Alright, so let's start with Deuteronomy 28, verse 15. Okay, so it says, but it shall come to pass. Well, let's first get understanding really quick. Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1. So we get a better understanding of our book, scriptures. It says, Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1. It says, these be the words which Moses spake unto all Israel on this side Jordan, in the wilderness, in the plain over against the Red Sea, between Paran and Tophel, and Laban, and Hazeroth, and Dazahab. So these are all the words in Deuteronomy starting off. This is the first verse, and the first chapter and the first verse of this whole book of Deuteronomy. These were everything in Deuteronomy was the words that Moses spake unto all the Israelites, all Israel. All right, so let's get back to it. Deuteronomy 28, verse 15. So we just get understanding. So we know everything we hear. This is Moses talking to Israelites. So getting back into it. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So we finna get into proving that, like it says right here, Negroes are the people under God's curses. Obviously, we know this is directed to anyone that's calling themselves a so-called Negro, Native, or Hispanic. You know. So we're gonna prove that these curses are upon you. Moving on. So first curse we're gonna start with is, that's the perfect one. We're gonna start with verse 37. It says, and thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee. Once again, and thou, so Israel, remember this is Moses talking to Israelites, and thou, you, Israelites, shall become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword. So an astonishment, we know what that is. We can actually get into detail what it is, so it won't be no he say. We're gonna actually go into it. So it's a good dictionary right here. If you compare the dictionaries, the Oxfords, your Webster's, your American Heritage is your best. And there's other dictionaries too that's been cross compared, cross reference. There's a few I just named. So let's go get the understanding of what astonishment is really quick. Astonishment. For those who do not know what astonishment is, I'll tell you straight out of. So astonish, it says to fill with, well, first and foremost, astonish. To fill with sudden wonder or amazement. And this is Old French. The word astonishment comes from Old French, and it comes from the Old French word "estonner," So it says to fill with sudden wonder or amazement. So being an Israelite under this curse, you will be filled with, wonder, with wonder and amazement. Everything that's pretty much, going on with our people is, I know for myself, it's always a wonder. It's not even an astonishment no more, because I understand, but it is, still at the end of the day, I just understand that, that's just the case. So it's good to look up the words, because the English language was what the Hebrew was translated into. So it's good to go get the English definition for the words. And then if you really want to go deep, you can actually go into the Hebrew. But we're not going to do that. We're going to keep this simple because this is babies drink milk. So that's for the first word. So that's what astonishment is. So now that we know it, about a book, to be filled with wonder, amazement, a proverb. What is a proverb? That's a saying. Old wise, or not even wise, but it's a saying. A proverb, something like, what's a saying? Niggas like chicken. Stuff like that. Those are proverbs. A byword. That's anything outside of your actual name, your proper title, your God-given name. So-called Negroes, so-called Hispanics, so-called natives, so-called Indians. The list just goes on. It's ridiculous. The nigger, the colored coon. Not coon, but it's bad. Color black. That's what that is. That's what a byword is. And it says among all nations, and that's what they, cushy. That's what the fake Jews like to call the real Jews. And things like of that nature. And it says among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee. So you're gonna go through this wherever you go. We're scattered across the four corners of the earth. So the Israelites, the true Israelites, are feeling this everywhere, from the Western Hemisphere back to the East. From North America to South America, back up to the West Indies. To Africa, back to Israel, because we're scattered everywhere. You got actual Israelites living in, not the actual land, but like Jerusalem and whatnot, but not actual lands of our inheritance, but they living in like Demona and stuff like that. They're dealing with it there. They're dealing with it, in Europe. You're dealing with it in, they're dealing with it pretty much, everywhere. Anywhere, every continent you could think of that you could find an Israelite, they're going through it. And then they're actually referring it to the, to the Israelites that are not among them, as far as the other nations are concerned. Just how they look at us and talk about us. All right. So that's one. So I'm sure everybody can testify to that. The curses. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, cursed shalt thou be in the field. So that's verse 16. It doesn't matter wherever you go, you're cursed. We're cursed in these cities. We're cursed in the country. The suburbs. It don't matter where you go. If you're an Israelite, you're gonna feel these curses, and you can attest to them. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. You got a lot of the even the little bitty stores we have set up, little businesses we do have, they cursed. They're not really doing anything. Not how they should do. Not how these other nations, how they succeed and climb the ladder. And we're gonna really get going. So look, we just walking through it right now. Then we're gonna go live. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out. I understand that to be the birth. You know, your seeds inherit this. When you die, you're cursed. When you come in, you're cursed. It's really that simple. All the true Israelites you can't deny this. I mean, even the rich ones, even the so-called celebs, like LeBron James. I remember back in, what was that, a couple years ago, when I think it was the finals or playoffs or something was going on, and his home in LA, they tagged it with, with the byword on it, what they put on his gates. And perfect example, he got kids, and look, that's what they inherit based off who their father is or what their father is, and that's the Israelite. So even with the money, even with him being world renowned, he can't escape it, and his children definitely can't. So what do you think he has to tell them? Being in his right mind, he's telling them the truth. I mean, not necessarily truth, because he's not in the truth, but the realities, I guess, of being who we are, even though he's not really, not with how he carry himself, he couldn't have understanding of who he truly is. But that's a perfect example. Verse 32, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thy eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thy hand. So perfect examples of that is when the Israelites was on the slave auction blocks. And I don't know if you're familiar with the them being separated with, at the site, at the sale, and it being nothing they can do about it. Take this for instance. I don't know if you can see this, but so one second. So I want to pull it up on the screen because I got some other things. See that? Look at the mother. I'm not talking no might. What it say? No might in her hand. Right? Now, it says, once again, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people. What's that? And thy eyes shall look and fail with longing all the day long, and there shall be no might in thy hand. And this is what you see. This was at an auction. See that? Great bargain. Negroes. And there go the brother right there. They would split the whole family up. So you can't make this up. These are real documents, the real records. I suggest you get into, because they will be erased pretty soon. I mean, everything is going down, but as for the time being. Let's get another one. That was verse 32. Let's get 41. It says, "Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity." All right. Now, perfect example is Malcolm X. He's an Israelite. That's how he ended up. If you're familiar with the life he was living before he came Malcolm X, his name is Malcolm Little, I believe, and he actually was known as. He grew up with Red Fox from Sanford and Son, and they were both called Red. Malcolm X was Red Detroit. Red Fox was obviously Red Fox, and they both just went two different directions. Red Fox, he got into acting, and then, but this is when they was. I'm more so talking about the life they was living before, their careers or whatever. He, whole point, Malcolm X, he was a victim of Deuteronomy 28:41. "Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity." His family was split up. His father was killed, and his mother basically lost all her kids, and they went into, the foster care system, and that's how he got into the life he was getting into, getting in trouble and stuff like that. But him being the true Israelite he is, the father used him, and to really manifest all the very verse we're reading right now, and other things, other scriptures, like Deuteronomy 18 or 13 about the prophet and the dreamer, no man being able to save you. That's in the curses. So he helped manifest and prove all that to be true. There's another instance of Deuteronomy 28:42. They found them this is them saying they found these children like this because of their situation. Their mother went into, they always take the father out of the situation. The dad out of the situation. And then they said this is how they are now. But guess what? Yeah, still cursed. But yeah. And I mean, it's plenty more documents. This one just so happened to not be a sketch. So you can't make this stuff up if you wanted to. Some of our people so prideful they think we wasn't even. What was the ships at? What were them ships at? They don't do no research. They don't do any research. When the ships is in museums and etc., it's sad, man. But so that's pretty much that. We're gonna get the main one. We're gonna go ahead and jump to it. I'm gonna just start reading some. "The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low." So that's all of the brothers and sisters that's into building up the community and stuff like that, and complaining about how all of these other nations come in and they run the community and they can set up businesses. This scripture helps prove that. They take the community and come up, and we just go down low, and then they go ahead and gentrify it at that or whatever. So verse 34, "So that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thy eyes, which thou shalt see." how many of us can attest to that? And thy carcasses shall be meat unto the fowls, unto all fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away. So that will be when you will see, the slaves, hanging, and got more documents on that as well. We're gonna prove everything while you're sitting here. Sorry for the energy. Should have did this a lot earlier, but still for edification purposes, it should still be on point. Alright, this is one right here. This is a good one. These are real documents. He's burnt up. Alright, now it says, what verse is that? That's right. Verse 26, and thy carcass shall be meat unto the fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away. You think they taking pictures around it? They posing. These people around them, you got modern people call them they call themselves white people, but these are the Edomites according to the Bible. People we were sold to, thy enemies. So does it look like they're gonna fray anything that comes to eat on that away? It's carcass. That's literally what this is. It's a carcass. Not at all. They're gonna wear the suits that they wear to this day, which is a facade. It's really a monster behind a suit. But a suit isn't anything anyway. The customs of the so-called white man, Edomite. Brothers like to call them the Red Hebrew. That's what they are. Let's get another one. Alright. We can pull them up on the screen, but it's much better to really show how we really operating. Look, they not fraying it. That's not their plans. They posing. These were postcards. This burnt. This is a carcass burnt up. You can see it. You don't think they left them up there for some hours, and the birds started to pluck on it, and depending on where they was at, like I said, the beast of the field coming to do their thing with it, thinking these people was trying to shoo them away, because it went on. Father said it was gonna go on, so I'm sure it happened. Positive it happened. All right, let's jump to the next one and we're gonna really get to it. So it says 46, and they shall be upon thee. So before I read this, so a lot of these, you can see these curses, they really manifested completely, at a lot of different times. All of them probably more than likely still active. Like they said, they still well, I hate to say they said, but news reports have it that those instances are still taking place in the South. They finding people dangling from the trees and etc. still to this day. So hey, verse 46, and they shall be upon thee, no one else. Remember Deuteronomy verse 1, chapter 1, verse 1. These be the words which Moses spake unto all Israel, so only Israelites. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. So you was only seeing these things happen to, the so-called Negro, Native, and Hispanic. And we're gonna prove that. I got another document really quick. And obviously those was literal carcasses, so you technically couldn't even tell. Because I know the whole point of this is getting you to realize this is really talking about people who think themselves to be something other than this, actually claiming something that really has no origin currently. Right here. Let's get this one. Let's try this one. Look, every picture that's what they do. They post. Somebody posted up there like it's nothing. Now, what that look like up there? That like what you call a mulatto. So while everybody claiming to be this and that, truly knowing they don't know who they are. All the dots are floating around, been floating around for you, and they being connected by those who are doing the diligence to put an end to the madness, to wake up from the madness, at least. And they shall be upon thee, and thy seed, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. So these was put on us to be a factual sign. Seeing these things in your history that you want to run from, or some of our people want to run from and disassociate themselves with, being prideful, which is the whole reason we're in this situation right now anyway. Now, and for a wonder, so it's to make you think, like, if not in the past, at least now. Like, I never thought, well, why did this happen to, why did this happen to the Negroes? I could really consider everyone to be Negroes, as far as the certain natives and the Hispanics. To me, it's a genotype that we're all carrying, and but yeah, it's for a wonder. The things that happen to us, you should be, for you to be able to look back at the history and really think, why did this happen? Why did that happen to the natives? Why did it happen to the so-called Negroes, the so-called Hispanics, or whatever? And Hispanics being those of South America, so basically of those people of the so-called Spanish culture, not really originating from that, but that being who they just what their culture is, the culture they're familiar with, at least, from the islands, some of the islands like Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, etc. Stuff like that. All those things that happened. Said it's for a wonder. So you look back on that stuff and it's supposed to just make you think, well, why did that happen? I never thought about it till, these days, but like, well, what was, people call him God. What was God at then? Never asked that, learning this in school. Like, well, why did this happen? It's basically, it told you this happened and you just accepted it. Like, oh, okay, this was history. That don't make sense to do. Now, asking questions. Now, we're wondering. All right. Verse 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. And that's one thing that each one of those names up here has in common: Negro, Native, and Hispanic. So-called Negroes, before we woke up to the truth, you were saying you're African, but you still had a nation that you didn't know coming against you. And it just so happens the same nation's symbol is the eagle. The natives had it happen to them as well. A nation that they didn't know came to them, and that's this same nation happened to, their coat of arms, their symbol is an eagle, and all of the so-called Hispanics, like I said, the different islands, they had the same thing happen. Actually, it was the people. Those are definitely Negroes. They were just dropped off. They were gathered from where we were, and then they just happened to go to those places. And throughout time, they ended up getting diluted and stuff like that. Not completely, but just to have some effect. And yeah, and these same people claim identities that are not really origins. They have no real origin. You took the language of a nation. You took that you didn't know. Like he just said, whose tongue you will not understand. And those same people conquered you and taught you their tongue. Tongue meaning language. So that's how we know we're the Israelites. These are things you just can't deny. It says a nation of fierce, verse 50 of Deuteronomy 28, chapter 28, verse 50. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of old, nor shew favor to the young. And that's what they did. Out the gator babies, feeding your baby, stuff like that. Your babies to the crocs, the gators. You could actually look that up. Postcards were being made about that. You can find documents on the natives dealing with the same thing over here. When Christopher Columbus and the other conquistadors came, that's more so history. We're just gonna keep it simple, but just to let you know, this is factual. This is not what you maybe some might be not in agreements with, like the 12 tribe. No, this is actual, studies and actual facts that we could actually bring out on another channel. You actually go subscribe to. You could probably look it up. You should be able to find it. Spirit, Water, Blood. Spirit, Water, Blood God, I believe, is the channel. And that on there we'll be going over history in depth, because this is supposed to just be simple. Just getting to nothing more than this page, really, and that's it. But yeah, so like I said, if you want to actually go in depth and actually know these things factually, I will be going there in depth. Like I said, you can go subscribe to that channel as well. Now, back to this. And it was they said a nation of fierce continents. You go into the history, like, what you do know, Pilgrims sitting down with the Indians, so-called natives. Who was really the savages? Who's really the one from a neutral perspective? Who was the one that, really seemed, fierce? Clearly the people with the guns and the little stupid hats and the little black and white outfits, whatever it was. They didn't show favor to no one, to the old nor young. Same thing with it's just time to really bring everything to light, because we already know with the Negroes. But yeah. So that's pretty much that. We're gonna get the last one. We're gonna get the main one. We're gonna get one more then the last one. Verse 62, and ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of the Lord thy God. They said, it's recorded. I want to do more research into it, but supposedly over 78 million natives died from running into this nation of a fierce countenance with everything they went on to do, smallpox and etc. Just slaying them, and you really don't see that many Indians anymore. A lot of the so-called other nations, they don't even know that they're the Indian is truly really saying the indigenous people of the lands. Esau done got you to separate from that. So-called white man done got you to separate from that, to where you claim the new titles that he's giving you. You don't even understand yourself to be, a native anymore. But you still have some holding on to the title of being native, And you got some so-called blacks that claim themselves to be native. So we're talking about all the supposed natives. The ones that claim, well, we was already over it. Okay. Those natives, you still fall into the Israelites. The Israelite category, according to the Bible that you say you believe in. Right, so let's see. So he said you're going to be left few in number, whereas you were the stars of whereas you were as the stars of heaven for a multitude. And the reason being, he says, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of the Lord thy God. And the Lord shall, 64, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Look at all these different nations. How is everyone of supposedly or actual background, serving wood and stone, being wood being Christianity, stone being Islam or Muslims? Mecca, they serve a big stone in Mecca when they do a pilgrimage back to Mecca, that if you destroyed it, it couldn't get back up, as the scriptures say. It couldn't put itself back together. So how could that be a God? Well, how could you worship that? It makes no sense. Our God is the living God, the creator of heaven and earth. Now, affirmatives. Christianity. First Christians were that's in I believe Acts 10, 20, 25, 26, 28, one of those. First Christians, that was you don't see that in the scriptures, but there. And that was a title put on the disciples, the apostles, for from the Greeks, and they was dealing with Paul. I mean, not dealing with Paul, but they knew there was the Hebrews following, the Messiah, because the Christ is all that is Greek. Those are Greek terms. Jesus is a Greek name. So-called Jesus was a Hebrew from the tribe of Judah. So we know his name wasn't Jesus. That's one fact. 2, there's no J, there's no E, there's no U in Hebrew. 3, the letter J was just invented around the 15 to 1600s. And that don't make any sense. So that's the wood and stone that people is dealing with. Yahushua, he got hung from a tree. That's Jesus' real name. That's proven in the Hebrew. You can get into the Hebrew and actually read that. In English, his name will translate to Joshua. You go into the Hebrew, that will translate to Yahushua. Now, that's that. So that's the wood and the stone. In other words, he didn't tell you to do that. That's what he's telling you. So people doing that are going completely to the left side, to the right side. They're not going straight. They're not walking the narrow path. He said, you've never known this. Your fathers never known this, meaning your forefathers. This is completely, it's completely left. Now, and among these nations thou shalt find no ease. And I said one more, but this is spirit. Verse 65, and among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. But the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart, and a failing of eyes, and a sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. Now we're gonna go ahead and jump into it, because I don't want too many people thinking they can connect with that, but you really can't, because that's a whole nother feeling that most of these nations, only the nations on these papers dealing with. So in other words, I should say, I don't want anyone to be able to block. So let's go ahead and prove that these curses are talking about these people. Us. Verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. So that's the slave trade, which we already got into in the first video. No need to go back over that. But that's one of the curses. So when someone's cursed, that's like directly input. That's not a broad thing. The world didn't go into a slave trade. That was a prophecy. That was a curse prophesied to happen, and it happened. All right. Now let's go ahead and get to it. Now, we only know one people that happened to. School curriculum only teach that happened to one people. The Bible tells you, into the next script we're going to jump into, let's get it real quick, and he tell you in Daniel as well. I don't know any other people that happened to besides so-called Negro Man, woman, and child. But now we find out that's in the Bible, and that's more valuable. That happening to us is more valuable than anything because of this reason. Now, remember he said these things will be put on us for a sign forever. So they were meaning it will always be a sign. It's not going to change. This is supposed to be a sign to identify to you. All right. So Daniel chapter 9, verse 11. I'm going to start at 9. That's what I got. That's what we got on here anyway. So to the Lord our God belong mercy and forgiveness, though we have rebelled against him. Neither have we obeyed the voice of the Lord our God, to walk in his laws which he set before us by his servants the prophets. Yeah, all Israel have transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey the voice. Therefore the curse is poured upon us, and the oath that is written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, because we have sinned against him. And he has confirmed his words which he spake against us, and against our judges that judged us, by bringing upon us a great evil. For under the whole heaven have not been done as has been done upon Jerusalem. Jerusalem being us, being the Israelites. So Father even telling you this ain't happening to nobody else. What has happened to you, Jerusalem, it has not happened to anybody else. And we still suffering from this. And this was written over 2,000 years ago. How does it still apply? Like the Father say, his counsel stands forever, generation to generation. Period. It's never gonna go out of date. Go out is not. It's the ultimate wine. This is non-perishable. All natural. The truth. Chosen people. Let's go to man, they done. Let's see. 1 second. Do that. Just want to show something real quick. How and why so-called Negroes are God's chosen people. Okay, how one man's, this is the USDA.gov. This is the U.S. Department of Agriculture website. And this is a post, an article, how one man's invention changed food access worldwide. This is Fred Jones. He was an inventor, and he revolutionized the transportation of food and changed the way that we eat. This is, I'm gonna just read. Let's see. Jones was born in Cincinnati, Ohio in 1893. So this is a little bit after the slavery was ended. Almost 2 decades before mechanical refrigerators were even available in the United States. Orphaned at age 8, he was raised by a priest. So what was we just talking about? We just talk. That's in the scriptures. The Israelite children was going to go into captivity. They was going to be separated from their parents. He was orphaned at age 8. So you can't make this stuff up. There's a black man sitting right here, so-called black man. He was raised by a priest. You can't make that up. There's an Israelite sitting right here in Kentucky and left school after 8th grade. He had a natural aptitude and understanding of machines and mechanical devices, something he continued to develop through reading and self-education. So that's one way you know this man is a child of God, because the resilience of these people, the so-called Negroes, the natives, and the Hispanics, is like no other. What we have been through, it should be genocide. But the Most High is not going to have that happen. And it hasn't happened in either one of those, you supposed different groups. Supposedly. Because he said he was never going to do away with his people. We're just in captivity right now. And the resilience is like no other. Literally are the children of God. So it says, I just want to get to the point. So here we go. In July 1940, Jones Patton, so he grew up make sure I ain't leaving nothing. But he grew up, he ended up he basically ended up manifesting what he was sent here to do. Alright. Now, in July 1940, Jones patented a refrigeration system for trucks that would allow them to transport perishable foods for longer distances. Cinema supplies made successful in large part due to Jones' designs and improvements was sold to RCA and Numerero, and Jones started a refrigeration company. So, to the nitty gritty, the concept of refrigerating transported goods was novel at the time. When Thermo Kings, because that's what he invented, Model A refrigeration units were applied beyond trucks. So he basically what he did, he came up with a way for trucks to be able to carry food. So without this dude, this brother, this Israelite, we would not be able to eat. So Yahweh had this brother, he raised his brother up to do that. After all of this, he went through. And he's an Israelite. This is how the stores get their food. He made it to where the stores could travel. He made it to where the semi trucks could carry food on them and not perish by coming up with a AC or a refrigeration. I mean, this is the USDA.government. The United States Department of Agriculture is revealing this. So it says the concept of refrigerating transported goods was novel at the time when Thermo King's Model A refrigeration units were applied beyond trucks to things like boats, planes, and boxcars. It had an immediate and dramatic effect on the availability of food worldwide. Suddenly, millions around the world could enjoy fresh food any time of the year. Fruits and vegetables were able to be shipped to troops stationed overseas in World War II. So, you couldn't eat food without the Most High raising Fred Jones up to do this. And it's an Israelite. And people don't even know this. Gas stations, grocery stores, etc. Because the food can't be hauled in conditions like a regular big metal hot stinky semi truck. Like you said, and then it went beyond the semi trucks to boats and planes and boxcars being trains. So they used his patent, his design, his invention to be able to get the food across the world, across the states, across the highways and the byways, to be able to get to the markets so people can go buy them and as it said, enjoy fresh food. And people don't even know this. But yeah, we get all this slack every day, and people don't even know that Israelites are responsible for basically everything that runs the world, while we're actually at the bottom. So it says, before he passed, Jones had, in 1961, Jones had over 60 patents in various fields, including one for a portable X-ray machine. 40 of his patents were related to refrigeration. He was also the first African American elected to the American Society of Refrigeration Engineers and the first to receive the National Medal of Technology, presumably in 1991. At USDA's Agriculture Marketing Service, AMS, we celebrate the contributions made by African innovators like Fred Jones. His contributions directly impacted what we do, especially in our agriculture transportation division. So this is the U.S. government saying we couldn't be nothing without him. By Yahweh. They not saying that, but I'm saying that. In the name of Yahweh Shah. Where we see the results of his work every day. So it still goes on. This is actively going on. No, he was born in the 1800s. So I'm talking about straight out the shackles. The children of God is clear. I mean, it's not even it's not a secret. It's a secret, but it's you can't contain it. Where we see this results of his work every day. He used his passion for refrigeration and his inventiveness to increase food safety during shipment and made food more accessible worldwide. So without this brother, this Israelite, you couldn't eat food. You couldn't even access food. And people don't even know that. Let's get another one. And if you're familiar with Thermo King, that's him. And numerous other things. And note these websites. These are basically your world elite websites. Brands, companies, etc. I mean, that was the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And then they just confirmed that he's an Israelite, so-called African American, which is really Israelite. 1930, the byword, there you go, everything about it. 1923, Garrett Morgan patents 3-position traffic signal. So this is Garrett Morgan. He's another Israelite. He made the stop. He made the traffic light. He's another. He grew up in Ohio. Morgan, right here, the child of 2 former slaves, was born in Kentucky in 1877. So you're talking right out of the shackles. These are the children of God. These are the Israelites. That's why he said we was going to be above all nations. We was a peculiar people, a treasure. Tell you that in Deuteronomy 14, verse 2, 3. Says, matter of fact, let's get there real quick. We're gonna hurry up and wrap this up. Before I go into that. Chapter 14 of Deuteronomy, verse 1. Ye are the children of the Lord your God. You shall not cut yourselves nor make any baldness between your eyes for the dead. So this is going into some of the laws. But verse 2, here we go. But thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God, and the Lord have chosen thee to be a peculiar people unto himself above all the nations that are upon the earth. So there you have it. Now, Morgan, the child of two former slaves, those same slaves that we just read about in Deuteronomy 28:68, that were prophesied to come about. Morgan, the child of two former slaves, was born in Kentucky in 1877. When he was just 14 years old, he moved to Ohio to look for a job. A lot of the Israelite inventors, they was in Ohio. Weird. First, he worked as a handyman in Cincinnati. Then he moved to Cleveland, where he worked as a sewing machine repairman. In 1907, he opened his own repair shop, and in 1909, he added a garment shop to his operation. The business was an enormous success, and by 1920, Morgan had made enough money to start a newspaper, the Cleveland Call, which became one of the most important black newspapers in the nation. So it says, Morgan was prosperous enough to have a car at a time when the streets were crowded with all manners of vehicles. Bicycles, horse-drawn delivery wagons, streetcars, pedestrians all shared downtown Cleveland's narrow streets and clogged its intersections. There were manually operated traffic signals where major streets crossed one another, but they were not all that effective because they switched back and forth between stop and go. So they only had red and green on there. Some simple stuff. Now, it says, with no interval in between. Drivers had no time to react when the command changed, which would make perfect sense. You don't know. The stoplights still do that to this day. I don't know if that be a malfunction or just be the timing of when you get to the stoplight. You'll be getting ready to go through the light and it'll hurry up and turn red. Now imagine not having that interval. This led to many collisions between vehicles that both had the right of way when they entered the intersection. As the story goes, when Morgan witnessed an especially spectacular accident at an ostensibly regulated corner, he had an idea. So basically what he went on to do, it says if he designed an automatic signal with the interim warning position, the ancestry of today's yellow light, drivers would have time to clear the intersection before crossing it. So he made the stoplight we use today. People don't know that. He also made the gas mask as well. Now these are inventions you can't live without. You cannot live without what Fred Jones brought. You cannot live without. You literally would probably die if we still had the green light, red light. It was impossible for that to be. No, both of them was born in 1800s and came from the slave background. These are pure Israelites. Then, I mean, for Fred Jones to be raised by a priest, I mean, that's even more revealing. Being an orphan at 8 and being raised by a priest, you know, the idea of being raised by a priest, because we know the priest we're completely out of position now, but we getting it back. But yeah, and this brother made the stoplight, and also, you know, a famous newspaper, the Cleveland Call, and he made the gas mask. You can go look into that. So those are just a couple things. And this is history. This is the history. This is the History Channel. They come on TV, television, that lie you about everything, but they actually revealed this. Most High put the spirit on them to bring this out. You know. So we got to see exactly how there's a chosen people clearly on the planet, and the chosen people are clearly alive and very well oppressed. You just seen the background. They literally just proved everything that we just read as far as the curses to be true, while yet still being the children of God, excelling at, you know, just superior level. I mean, it's not even a comparison. And that's just a couple things. Now, some notable mentions, because I'm not going to do the other ones. Alice H. Parker, that's an Israelite sister. She invented the heater, the furnace, the gas furnace. That's used today. Louis Latimer, that's who patented, he drew up the patent, quote unquote, he drew up the patent for Alexander Graham Bell for the telephone, but he actually invented the telephone, because that don't make any sense. And we know that white people just lie about everything. How can I draw up your own idea? Like, they don't even make sense. He just took credit for it, but he made the carbon filament to make the light bulb work. He invented the light bulb, and he also invented the lamp, the electric lamp. So that's another Israelite. Mark Dean. We're gonna actually go get that one, because this is big. And note, all these things being mentioned, you can't live without. Let's get Mark Dean. Let's get Mark Dean. One second. Mark Dean is pretty much covered up by, I'm gonna just say it, he's covered up by Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs has nothing on Mark Dean. Steve Jobs actually is nothing without the inventions brought forth by Israelites, in all actuality. But if you really look at the timing and you go into the patents and the history, everything he did was off. He was able to do based off what these Israelite inventions, you know, by Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shah, was able to do. Pretty much, Mark Dean, he invented the color PC monitor. He worked for IBM, the IBM computers, and pretty much, he, like I said, he invented the color PC monitor. Israelite man. So you could thank him for being able to use the computer in a non-prehistoric fashion, and he also made the industry standard system bus, the little ports on the side of your computer that allow you to plug up all type of devices like printers, scanners, fax machines, etc. All the computers, like he's the standard. His system bus is the standard. That whole how that's on all computers. That's his design. That's what he did. He also made the first gigahertz chip, which allows the computer to calculate like a million different, do over like a million calculations in like a second. Like basically, you can understand that. Like when you click something, you know it's just the computer's doing a lot to make it pop up and go that fast. He did that. So you don't hear about him because computer nerds like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. But yet, all three of those inventions, if he made the color PC, I mean, that's the alley-oop to Steve Jobs. He didn't make the color PC monitor. The monitor. How all PC monitors, the screen, are in color, he did that. The industry standard system bus, Mac. So Mac uses his design for their ports. He got the S from Mark Dean. It's industry standard. First gigahertz chip. He made the first gigahertz chip. So if he made the first gigahertz chip for a computer to be able to calculate at a high rate, for you to actually be able to use it, input something, and the output comes back like a computer you use today. At the time he created it, what is Steve Jobs? What is Bill Gates? This is an Israelite. I don't have a tab, but you can look it up. And these are all being set forth by, you know, renowned, not publishers, but, media companies or whatever. So yeah, I'm probably not gonna find that. I'm not gonna look. But yeah, Mark Dean, another so-called not so-called, well, so-called black man or Israelite or woman notable mention is Shirley Jackson. She made her research, and she made the call ID. She invented that, got the patents, I believe. I researched her, but I gotta actually see, because you can go and see the patents by finding the number. But she has the call ID, the touch tone, and the touch tone telephone. Lonnie G. Johnson, another notable mention. He made the Super Soaker. The Super Soaker used to play with back in the day. That's an Israelite, man. To look that up. And he was, ever since he created it, it's been in the top 20 toys since it's been released. So his royalties on it is crazy, because you got one, you can go to a dollar store and get the creation of a Super Soaker, and it'll be like a plain brand, and then you can go to like a Toys R Us and you can get one from like Nerf. They were all using his patent. So those are millions of dollars. He created off water pressure. Another notable mention is that's it. I'm gonna stop there. But yeah, so close this out. Israelite made the doorknob. Another notable mention. Another notable mention is Otis Boynton. He made the wire resistor to where it allows a safe amount of electricity to pass from one point to another, basically to make all your stuff work, like as far as anything you use. And then he created it's a precision, a precise, I'm gonna say, wire resistor. Then he created a better version of it to where it allowed high amounts of temperature and air to pass through it, to where missiles used his patent. So missiles are working off Otis Boynton's. He from grew up in Chicago or whatever. He's from Chicago, Israelite man. But yeah, I ain't gonna keep going. Let's see. And note, the whole thing, we're down right now. For the first time in history, this is Business Insider. For the first time in history, hip hop has surpassed rock to become the most popular music genre. Israelite. It's a good thing they put his picture up there, because at least he came out and said he know he an Israelite, but he living the lukewarm 2-cup life. That ain't gonna work, as we know, according to the scripture. But all praise to the Most High, because he's gonna get a lot of, Israelites to wake up to who they are, even if he don't truly turn over to who he actually is. This is mirror.co.uk. Hip-hop is the most important genre of music to emerge in the last 50 years, claim pop scientists. Israelites. It says the most important genre of music. So that's the world. You can't make this stuff up, man. The Father know what he doing. Even in captivity. In that case, why don't we own anything? These are more of the curses. You're going to come down very low. He said, within thee. You're going to come down. The stranger with thee, Deuteronomy 28 verse 43, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. So they use us to become, they take our inventions and our abilities and turn them into industries, and they pay us for our own creation. I mean, it just don't make no sense. But those are the curses. We should own hip-hop then. You think we own hip-hop? No. These are all Israelites. Independent. Independent.co.uk. It says hip-hop is the most listened to genre in the world, according to Spotify analysts of 20 billion tracks. Israelite. Let's go down. Look at his hand. See what he's doing? He's living a double life. But at least he's the one who came on and said, so I put it on him to say that he's an Israelite with all the influence he has right now. And we're gonna get this last one. We're gonna go to Forbes. fact, let's get this really quick before we go to Forbes. Now this is a forum right here. This is Reddit.com. Front page of the internet. Let's see what they say here. See what's going on here. So once I finish these, I'm gonna run through these scriptures, and it's gonna be until next time. So this is, let's see what the topic of this is. It says black people are better. I thought it was time to confront some views of mine I have been festering. I was always anti-racist, but somehow developed these beliefs that black people are simply better than white and Asian, etc. people. Keep in mind these come down to average differences, and that picking out individual cases won't disapprove the general trend. Physically, it is no secret that black people are some of the greatest athletes. When they got into basketball, for example, they completely dominated everyone. The old worry about Jewish basketball players was completely demolished, which we know is not a thing, Jewish, was completely demolished when a group of people who were more athletic got into the sport. Yeah, that real Jews. The same is true for football. They are far overrepresented in basically every sport that they have an equal chance of competing in. There have been some studies showing their muscle fibers are better, both sprinting, long distance, having bone, and he leaves the source, or whatever, he's citing the source, have higher bone densities, they will be better astronauts. So they would think, based off our genetic makeup, that we're more built to go out of so-called space than anyone, and have more testosterone. Keep in mind all this comes from the most impoverished and oppressed people in the history of the planet. Just imagine what they could do with the money and training and support that other groups of people have had, all the while losing to black athletes. So, I mean, more of the curses. More of this Israelite awakening being really real. Understand it. They also have the deepest voices, the tallest people, more masculine faces, better skin, less skin cancer. Obviously, they age better, which is huge in society, which is obsessed with anti-aging. And there's generally some agreement and evidence they are sexually better. Pelvic floor muscles are important. He's citing a source. Penis size is debatable, but you have a hard time finding a small black guy. No ethnic group of people match up to their athleticism. They also have more genetic diversity in Africa than, see, they think we're African. So the whole world just sleeps to what's going on, but what actually is everyone's just been lied to. But this is coming from an actual, whoever wrote this up, the other things are coming from his actual observations and studies and researches. But that part right here on who we actually are, you will actually have to have that revealed to you, by the Spirit, by the Most High, because you got white people that don't even know where they come from. They don't even know they're Edomites. Just like none of the nations know who they are, but a lot of the nations do. A good portion of I would say a vast, a majority of the nations know who the real Israelites, the Jews are, and the Jews are. It says they also have more genetic diversity in Africa than the entire non-African population. It is quite clear that the black people are physically better than everyone else. So this is funny because these Africans, they low key blending in with us and receiving just because people think we're African. So it make them look good. Now imagine once it really come out that we're completely different people. They think they're looking at it just off color and just off the fact that our people, was picked up from Africa. They don't do the history to know, well, the Jews fled into West Africa, fleeing Roman persecution when Jerusalem was taken down in 70 AD. But another story. Mentally, that was all physically. So now we're going to get into mentally. He says mentally, there is no evidence that black people inherently have lesser IQ. They're just as capable as anyone else. Because it's a stereotype out there. We're not, I'm not even going to go into that. But I should, because it's a part of the whole line we're on, verse 2. Okay, but I won't do it though. They're just as capable as anyone else. In fact, they're also notoriously quick-witted. That means you think fast, you quick to the gun, quick to the draw. Which is it says they're in fact they're also notoriously quick-witted, which is demonstrated in their superior ability to rap and spit lyrics. People usually say that the best artists came from well-off families, but this is the reverse for black people, and they have better musicians than anyone. People idolize their skill in music and their rhythm, while joking about that of others, and maybe they're right. White musicians have generally needed to copy black musicians to make better music. The kind of singers they produce are so much more soulful and emotional than anyone, or at least most, of singers through all of time. On top of this, the rhythms of black cultures are more complex and rhythmic than any other, which are usually rigid. Morally speaking, they also have the least baggage. Other groups have all done far worse crimes, and black people have always been the victim of others' oppression, because they fear how much black people would be. They also have. Now, that's real, because no matter how much they try to, even with that being said, they still try to, campaign smear, our whole nation, just especially the Negroes, so-called Negroes. Like I said, even though I believe everyone on this list to be of the Negroid genotype, DNA, even if it's not equal across the boards amongst us all, but I do believe that's because they put that on us, and it don't really have nothing to do with color. It just seems like it's something deeper. But they know the truth. But what I was saying, even with them constantly branding, they don't even really brand that, the black on black crime, because that's what I was getting into. But it's good to see that with all the black on black crime, the hate crimes of each other, of between the Hispanics and the blacks, so-called blacks. Like I said, you really don't see the Indians too much. The Mexicans, they truly Indians, and the natives, they don't even understand. And they got hate crime problems. Well, I really won't say them, but yeah, it's just good to see it. Moving on. It says, again, if social situations like SES and racism were equalized, black people would come out on top because of their physical and mental superiority. I'm going to try as hard as I can to be open to changing my view, but I am aware I grew up in a culture which idolized black men. But for the time being, I'm completely convinced that the black people are just simply better at everything and worse at nothing. I suppose in order to change my view, you have to argue that there are cons that either outweigh or equalize all the immense pros of black ancestry. So that's interesting. Now, you know, there's a bunch of idiots on here. Because I believe that to be an Edomite who wrote that. But I'm sure there's a bunch of clear, but it ain't that obvious. It's not that clear. Kind of is, especially with the pelvic thing. That's just always been a thing. I'm not even gonna get into that. But they just, the leaders would talk like that. The Edomites, the white people, so-called white people. But so it's not that clear that that's an Edomite, but it kind of is. But I'm sure on here, it's very clear. A lot of these replies are definitely going to be from Edomites. Why? Because what can a so-called black person get on here and say to that? I don't have nothing to say to that, really. But the truth is the truth. It's not even really even. That's more than enough to say. So this Israelite thing is real. The awakening. People just, only certain people gonna be able to do the math and put it together. Oh yeah, let's get these real quick. Forbes. It says hip-hop/R&B is the dominant genre in the U.S. for the first time. This is an Israelite right here, Drake. He an Israelite. And this is Forbes.com. So I'm going to the music because I'm going to where the Israelites are at. We don't have anything. But with the things we do get, look what's being said. You know, and that article just read, it put, or thread, whatever you want to call it, it put a lot in perspective from someone else's perspective. See where you at. I don't know what this is. This is not. This is time. I had a tab on here. It must have. I don't know. I had something very important I wanted to show. At time, actually. You know, brought out. So, I mean, that's that, man. We're gonna go ahead. Let's get it real quick. Jeremiah 17:4. So it says, it reads, and thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not, for ye have kindled a fire in my anger, which I'll burn forever. So the Israelites discontinued from their heritage. That's why we came and made up. That's why, like how it just said on the mirror.co.uk or .uk.co, whatever, how hip-hop was fairly new, but that became a culture for the missing one we had, because it said it emerged in the last 50 years. So so-called black people ain't always had hip-hop, but now look what it's doing. It's so powerful, and technically by that becoming so big, we actually serving it. We're proving that to be true. We're discontinued from our heritage that the Most High gave us, which is these scriptures, you know, these laws, statutes, commandments, and etc. And living like the priests and kings and princesses that we're supposed to be. or whatever as a nation. You know, the governors, the judges of the earth. And instead, we're doing things like hip hop that they're trying to push on us to keep doing, and it's actually serving our own enemies, people we don't even know. You know, so that's that. Let's go to Romans. So Romans 9:3-4, it says, "For I wish that," starting at 3, "For I wish that myself were accursed from Christ for my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory, and the covenants and the giving of the law, and the service of God, and the promises." So this is getting to the second part, because the first part, after Jeremiah 17:4, that was the curses. So now this is talking about, but we also, the Israelites also, we're cursed, but we also hold and inherit, and hold invite to his promises. So let's read it one more time. Romans 9:3-4, this is the start of that. How proving that even though we're cursed, we still inherit and hold invite to the Most High's promises. For I wish, verse 3, chapter 9, Romans. For I could wish that myself were accursed from Christ for my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh. So we're all kinsmen. You got to know that. According to the flesh. All Israelites have the same bloodline in them. We have the same blood of each other. So you talk to people in his family, like Israel, that's a scripture in the Bible. Israelites are your family, literally. You get into the scripture, you just read the scriptures, how everything got started. You couldn't look alike if you didn't have the same blood. So you got to really understand that we really are each other. But anyway, he said, so this is Paul saying it. He understood that. Now he's trying to get you to understand that. He said, for I could wish that myself were accursed for Christ, my brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the service of God. So no one else can serve the Most High but the Israelites, and the promises. No one else, the promises doesn't pertain to anybody else but the Israelites. The glory, the kingdom, having the Most High, the covenants, that only pertain to the Israelites. So that's how we inherit and hold the invite to his promises. It's like now we inherit and hold the curses. We also inherit and hold his promises. And his promises is the kingdom. Let's get through these verses real quick. Isaiah. Let's go back, jump back. So people act like it's a different book, the Old Testament. Isaiah 61, 4-6. So it says, and they shall build up the old wastes. They shall raise up the former desolations, and they shall repair the waste cities, the desolations of many generations. So cities like, if you look up, Israel, desolate cities, you're going to see that the Most High was not playing when he said that our cities was going to be desolate. Where those so-called Jews are living at now, those are not the actual places where the ancient Israelites dwelled at, where we dwelled at. That's not it. Look up Quebec, Kayafa. They can't dwell there. That's because he said it's going to be desolate. And Israel and the so-called white man, he loved building over old monuments and landmarks. Why haven't he done that? Because he can't. So that proves our Bible to be true, and the Most High having a leash on everyone he has a leash on. All right. Now, and the strangers, well, I gotta go into 6. And the stranger, verse 5, and the stranger shall stand and feed your flocks. So the stranger, so this is the Most High talking to the Israelites and telling them what's going to go down. These are one of the promises. And the stranger shall stand and feed your flocks. So the city's going to be built back up, those desolate cities. And he said, the stranger shall stand and feed your flocks. And the sons of the alien. So these strangers, these other nations are considered aliens, shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. So they're going to do all the work. They're going to do all your work. In other words, they're going to be your slaves. Verse 6, but ye shall be named, but ye, the Israelites, you Israelites, shall be named the priests of the Lord, men of Yahweh. Men shall call you the ministers of our God. Ye shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, those the natural Gentiles. Not the Israelites who went off and started living like Greeks and Romans and became Hellenized and turned their back on their own heritage and started taking to the heathen customs around of the nations that were around them. No, but the natural Gentiles. He said, you shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, and in their glory shall ye boast yourselves. So all the stuff that they have, they really just building up for us, and we're going to take all of that over. That the Most High wants us to. So that's some of the promises right there. And we really don't got to get Genesis 15, but we can get it. We can get it. We can get Genesis 15. Top it off. This is what a lot of brothers and sisters are looking forward to, but we got some brothers that this paper old, so I haven't really updated it, with the deeper understanding. But we'll read it. Genesis 15, we'll start at verse 12. So it says, and when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and lo, and horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram, verse 13, know surely that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs. So that seed was the seed of Israel. It's the Israelites, and shall serve them. So we were slaves, and they shall afflict them 400 years. Now that was not what happened in these scriptures, to my understanding, because people think when they read in Exodus 12:40. The Israelites was not living. They sojourned for, I believe, it was either 412 or 420 years. That's not 400 years. Most High is not slack with his word. He say 400, he means 400. We just so happen to be on Esau's paper record year 399 since supposed slavery started here, which was 1619. That's the only reason I went ahead and read it. On the deeper understanding, it's believed that that's not talking about that. And it really don't matter anyway, because, when it's all said and done, the Most High, he's doing what he's going to do regardless. So, and it says, verse 13, he said, they shall afflict them for 400 years. And then 14, promise. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge. Afterwards shall they come out with great substance. So that's that. So that's something that people are looking to as far as the promises. When I put that was just at that time. But that's just to keep it simple. So yeah, man. It's been good. Hope that's been edifying, and just want to give all thanks to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shah, for the spirit, the Rakah Kodash, and Till next time, shalom.